Hymns of the Pure Land Masters, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, 10 hymns based on his writings. Our teacher, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, abundantly praises the Pure Land in the West. In such works as his commentaries on the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra and the 10 Bodhisattva stages, and urges us to practice the Nembutsu. The world-honored one foretold that a monk named Bodhisattva Nagarjuna would appear in South India and would crush the wrong views of being and non-being. Our teacher, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, clarified the unexcelled dharma of the great vehicle. Having attained the stage of joy, he wholeheartedly recommended the Nembutsu to all. Mahasattva Nagarjuna appeared in the world and distinguished the paths of difficult and easy practice. Thus he leads us, who are wandering in transmigration, to board the ship of the universal vow. People who hear and accept the words of our teacher, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, should be mindful of the primal vow and say the name of Amida always. Those who desire quickly to attain the stage of non-retrogression should, with a heart of reverence, hold steadfast to and say Amida's name. The ocean of birth and death, of painful existence, has no bound. Only by the ship of Amida's universal vow can we, who have long been drowning, unfailingly be brought across it. The commentary on the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra states, the Tathagata is the supreme Dharma king, with bodhisattvas as Dharma vassals. The person to be deeply revered is the world-honored one. All the bodhisattvas state, quote, when we were in the causal stage, we passed through countless kalpas, performing the myriad good acts and practices. But the attachments of affection were extremely hard to sever, and birth and death was extremely difficult to exhaust. Only by practicing the Nembutsu Samadhi could we eliminate the obstructions of karmic evil and gain liberation. Here ends the hymns on Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. Bodhisattva Vasubandhu, 10 hymns based on his writings. Sakyamuni's teachings are numerous, but Bodhisattva Vasubandhu compassionately urges us, who are possessed of blind passions, to take refuge in Amida's universal vow. The adornments of the Pure Land of Peace are perceived only through the wisdom shared by Buddhas. That land is infinite, like space, vast and without bound. Of those who encounter the power of the primal vow, not one passes in vain. They are filled with the treasure ocean of virtues. The defiled waters of their blind passions not separated from it. The sages of the Tathagata's pure lotus are born transformed from the flower of perfect enlightenment. Thus, the aspirations of sentient beings are swiftly and completely fulfilled there. The immovable sages, who were formerly humans and devas, are born from the ocean of wisdom, the universal vow. The virtues of their mental activity are pure and free from discrimination, like empty space. Vasubandhu, author of the treatise, took refuge in the unhindered light with the mind that is single. He teaches that by entrusting ourselves to the vow's power, we will reach the fulfilled land. To take refuge with the mind that is single in the Buddha of unhindered light filling the 10 quarters is, In the words of Vasubandhu, author of the treatise, the mind that aspires to attain Buddhahood. The mind that aspires to attain Buddhahood is the mind to save all sentient beings. The mind to save all sentient beings is true and real Shinjin, which is Amida's benefiting of others. Shinjin is the mind that is single. The mind that is single is the diamond-like mind. The diamond-like mind is the mind aspiring for enlightenment. This mind is itself other power. On reaching the land of the vow, we immediately realize supreme nirvana, and thereupon we awaken great compassion. All this is called Amida's, quote, directing of virtue. Here ends the hymns on Bodhisattva Vasubandhu. Master Tan Luan, 27 hymns based on his writings. Our teacher, Master Tan Luan, through the guidance of Bodhi Ruchi, burned his scriptures on immortality, discarding them forever, and deeply took refuge in the Pure Land. Putting aside his lectures on the 4 treatises, he taught other power, the working of the primal vow. Guiding foolish beings bound by their blind passions, he led them to enter the gate to nirvana. The Lord of the mundane world came to inquire why he aspired for the Pure Land. Quote, all Buddha realms throughout the 10 quarters are pure. Why do you turn to the land in the west? Close quote. Master Tan Luan answered, quote, since my wisdom is shallow, and I have not yet attained the higher stages of bodhisattvahood, I am incapable, with my powers of mindfulness, of thinking equally on all lands. Close quote. Neither monks nor laity had any place to turn for refuge. Master Tan Luan alone resolved to lead them to aspire for the land of happiness. At the behest of the Emperor Wei, he lived at Taiyan Temple in Pingchao. Later, near the end of his life, he moved to Fenchao. The Emperor of Wei venerated him, giving him the title Holy Luan. The place where he lived came to be known as Eminent Luan's Cliff. Exerting all his energy to spread the act for birth in the Pure Land, he lived at Xuanzheng Temple, and in 542 moved to Yaoshan Temple. On reaching the age of 67, his time come, he attained birth in the Pure Land. There were then wondrous, auspicious occurrences, and monks and laity all venerated and took refuge in him. The emperor, wholeheartedly revering him, commanded that the tomb be built immediately at the splendid site of Chenling, in the Fenchao district of Fenxi province. Though we had the words of Bodhisattva Vasubandhu, if Master Tan Luan had not clarified them, how could we come to know the mind and practice of vast majestic virtues, which are other power? Knowing truly that the primal vow, the perfect one vehicle that brings about sudden enlightenment, grasps those who commit grave offenses and transgressions, we are quickly brought to realize that blind passions and enlightenment are not two in substance. Of the 5 inconceivabilities taught in the sutras, the inconceivability of the power of the Buddha Dharma is supreme. The inconceivability of the power of the Buddha Dharma refers to Amida's universal vow. Amida has fulfilled the directing of virtue, which has 2 aspects, that for our going forth and that for our return. Through these aspects of the Buddha's directing of virtue, we are brought to realize both mind and practice. The directing of virtue for our going forth is such that when Amida's active means toward us reaches fulfillment, we realize the Shinjin and practice of the compassionate vow. then birth and death is itself nirvana. The directing of virtue for our return to this world is such that we attain the resultant state of benefiting and guiding others. Immediately re-entering the world of beings, we engage in the compassionate activity that is the virtue of Samantabhadra. Vasubandhu speaks in his treatise of, quote, the mind that is single. Master Tan in his commentary explains that this is Shinjin, itself other power. The unhindered light filling the 10 quarters shines on the beings in the darkness of ignorance, and unfailingly brings to attainment of nirvana the person who realizes the one thought moment of joy. Through the benefit of the unhindered light, we realize Shinjin of vast, majestic virtues, and the ice of our blind passions necessarily melts, immediately becoming water of enlightenment. Obstructions of karmic evil turn into virtues. It is like the relation of ice and water. The more the ice, the more the water. The more the obstructions, the more the virtues. The ocean of the inconceivable name does not hold unchanged the corpses of the 5 great offenses and slander of the Dharma. The myriad rivers of evil acts, on entering it, become one in taste with the ocean water of virtues. Rivers of blind passions, on entering the ocean, the great compassionate vow of unhindered light filling the 10 quarters, become one in taste with that sea of wisdom. Being born in the Buddha land of happiness is the path to ultimate attainment of Buddhahood. All the Buddhas acclaim the Pure Land, for birth there is the unsurpassed means. Tan Luan teaches that the Buddhas adorn their 3 modes of action, so that they are characterized by ultimate non-discrimination. This is to heal the bodily, verbal, and mental acts of beings, which are false and delusional. Tan Luan teaches that we reach the Buddha land of happiness solely with the name, the unsurpassed gem, and true Shinjin, for those born there, follow no other way. Although initially there are 9 grades of beings, because the birth attained through Amida's pure primal vow is birth that is no birth, the Pure Land is free of such discrimination. The name of the Tathagata of unhindered light, and the light that is the embodiment of wisdom, dispel the darkness of the long night of ignorance, and fulfill the aspirations of sentient beings. Here ends the hymns on Master Tan Luan. Master Tao-ch'o, 6 hymns based on his writings. Setting aside the myriad practices of the path of sages, our teacher, Master Tao-ch'o, proclaims the single gate of the Pure Land Way as the only path that affords passage. Setting aside his extensive work on the Nirvana Sutra, our teacher, Master Tao-ch'o, entrusted himself to other power, the working of the primal vow, and urged the multitudes of the world of the 5 defilements to do so also. Sentient beings of the 5 defilements in the last Dharma age may perform the practices of the path of sages, but not one will thereby attain realization. So states the world-honored one, the master of the teaching. Following the teaching of Master Tan Luan, Master Tao-ch'o also determined that to awaken aspiration for enlightenment and perform practices in this world is the way of self-power. Wrongdoing and evil acts in this defiled world are like violent winds and torrential rains. All the Buddhas, sorrowed by this, urge us to take refuge in the Pure Land. Though we commit evil throughout our lives, if we say the Nembutsu always, with our hearts turned wholly to Amida, our obstructions fall away by the vow's spontaneous working. Here ends the hymns on Master Tao-ch'o.